sit down and look and think back, what significant stories do we have about ourselves, And, I think it's something subconscious, over time that it affects us and it makes us grow complacent in thinking that we don't have, we're not heroes, or we're not, we don't have these great big stories, so, we feel insignificant. We make ourselves insignificant. And, because our stories don't compare. They don't compare to other things that have happened to other people, if we really think of the big picture, look at it as a whole, the reality is that most of us don't really have big, great, significant stories to tell. So in other words, it's the reality, for most of us. And, this is why, because it's something that, I was, I don't know why, but, I was thinking about, like when my father passed away, I was thinking when, about him and, what he meant to me and, to him, he's my father. And I was thinking about, his, the viewing and the funeral. And, me, I made my father up to be this great person, and, to me he was, and, he's my father, of course. And then when the people came, I said, man, all the people are not going to come because he was this great man. He had made these great accomplishments. And in reality, it wasn't that many people there. It was just, the family and, a couple of people that we knew. But, so I was thinking to myself, for me, he was a significant person. But the reality was, at that moment, just thinking about it, the insignificance of just that story. I built him up to be this significant person, but in reality, was he insignificant? Because nobody showed up. It was just something that hit home for me. As far as what's important, what's really important as far as being significant and insignificant. And this is, why, God brought me to this subject. And I'm going to go to the second book of Kings, chapter 5. And I'm going to, this is a story, a lot of Christian people have heard about it. It's about the story of Naaman, the commander of the Syrian army. And I'm just going to read, I'm not going to read the whole story. I'm just going to read 5 verses on, that apply to this particular subject. So I'm going to read 2 Kings chapter 5, and I'm going to read from verses 1 through 5. I got the New King James Version. So. Now Naaman, commander of the army of the king of Syria, was a great and honorable man in the eyes of his master, because by him the Lord had given victory to Syria. He was also a mighty man of valor, but a leper. And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back captive a young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." Then the king of Syria said, "Go now, and I will send a letter to the king of Israel." So he departed and took with him 10 talents of silver, 6,000 shekels of gold, and 10 changes of clothes. I'm just going to read to there. What I wanted to focus on was the little girl. And I bring this up because they don't even mention her name. And it's since we don't know her name, it's really the only time. Who knows who she grew up to be? It doesn't say. So if we really look back, like when I look back at the story, I always focus on Naaman and the sequences of events that happen afterwards. But the little Hebrew girl, it almost seems like her part was insignificant. But if when we look back, if she doesn't speak up to Naaman's wife, Naaman never goes, to get his leprosy healed. He doesn't go to Elisha and Elisha tells him what to do, or he wouldn't have done it. He wouldn't have done it. And we go to the famous question: what if? What if she doesn't have the nerve, the boldness to at least say it to his wife? And insignificance plays a big role, a big part of not only in what she did, but in our lives. What if we didn't do this? What if we don't speak up? What if Peter doesn't accept Jesus' offer when Jesus says, "Come on, I'm going to make you a fisher of men"? Look at the role that Peter played. He played I know Paul played a great role, but try being the one who converts Jews. It's hard enough converting Gentiles, but how much harder is it to convert Jews? I think it's tougher. He played a significant role, but if we look back, I'm going to go out there and say this. I'm about 95% sure that Peter had no formal training, no education. He probably grew up working all his life. So imagine how insignificant he felt. So what if the insignificance that he felt overcame, what he had to do? He would have never accepted Jesus' offer. So I just, what I wanted to do today was look at 3 key points on why we feel insignificant, I'm not really going to be able to cover everything, but what I'll do is I'll cover 3 key points on why we feel insignificant and 3 solutions. And I'm not saying they're all the solutions, but 3 solutions on how to for us to not feel insignificant. So the first 3 I'm going to go over is why. Why is it that we feel insignificant? And I'm going to use that same story. This is why, at the beginning, I read the story of the little Hebrew girl. I'm going to, the first one, the first reason that we, one of the main reasons that we feel insignificance is, and I'm going to use her example first and then how it applies to us. She was captive. In verse 2, it reads, "And the Syrians had gone out on raids and had brought back a captive young girl from the land of Israel. She waited on Naaman's wife." She was captive. So how is it that applies to us?
She was a servant.
Yeah. Well, it applies to us in not only the physical sense, but also mentally. There's things that hold us captive, physically and mentally, that keep us, feeling insignificant. In her case, the physical was they actually grabbed her and told her, "You're going to be a slave over there," and the mental part was probably fear, because it says they were raids. They we got to remember that a lot of these stories they give you the short version, so it doesn't give you what really happened. Who knows? They probably went in there with swords and everything and took her from her parents, because it says young girl. It doesn't say young lady. So in other words, she probably wasn't a teenager yet. This girl is probably 10, 11, 12 years old. and how it applies to us. The insignificant part is she was held captive without having a choice. When those people went in there and put the swords on her, she had no choice, out of fear. Sometimes, our captivity at the beginning, it starts out like that. In my case, when I was molested as a young child, at first I didn't have no choice. And I felt because of that captivity that I didn't have a choice. But now, looking back, I knew I did have a choice. So and this applies because the insignificant side that we feel a lot of times is because of that, because we feel we have no choice. Whereas the significant part will tell us that yes, we do have a choice. So that's the first one. The second one is that she actually felt insignificant. I'm going to go to verse 3. Then she said to her mistress, "If only my master were with the prophet who is in Samaria, for he would heal him of his leprosy." How did she feel? How do I know that she felt insignificant? She didn't tell him directly. She didn't, and it wasn't like a direct statement. She was like, she was probably with the Naaman's wife, and her feeling insignificant. She was like beating around the bush, like, if he were to go, whereas somebody significant would go to Naaman and say, "Look, Naaman, I know somebody who could heal you of this, and he's in the land of Israel." So, the insignificant part lowers our self-esteem. Where she didn't feel worthy enough to stand in front of Naaman and tell him. And even the wife, she didn't really directly tell him, that she had the solution for his problem. How it applies to us. Sometimes there's things that we don't say or we don't do because of this, because we don't directly confront issues, because we don't feel worthy. We don't feel that we can be that significant part that God's going to use. Which is a problem. Because God uses everybody. God uses everybody. There is significant people that that are doing things on a broader scale, but it doesn't mean that we don't play a role. Us feeling like we don't play a role doesn't come from God. 100%. 100%. It doesn't come from God. The third one. Others feel that you're insignificant. I'm going to go to verse 4. And Naaman went in and told his master, saying, "Thus and thus said the girl who is from the land of Israel." He still didn't know her name. He didn't even mention her name. He didn't feel that she was significant enough to mention her name. How does this apply to us? Sometimes we feel that because other people don't acknowledge us, that it just has to stay that way. That's the way it is. That we are insignificant. When God says otherwise, if it really came from God, we would feel good about ourselves. But when we feel, and some, I think the biggest problem is that a lot of this is subconscious. It's the way we've learned to live as insignificant. Like we just accept that things that are going to happen or things that are going to move, somebody else is going to take the role and lead it. Not us. That we're not going to be the ones to have that big church or have this or have that or lead this group of people or be the one to direct this group of people. We just accept it. We accept our insignificance. Those, like I said, this is not like all the reasons that we feel insignificant, but I just wanted to go over three of the main ones. So what I'm gonna try and do is give you three of each. So that's three of those, and I'm going to give you three solutions to us, taking away that feeling of insignificance. And like I said, God has, been speaking, to me personally. Like I said, a lot of times it's not something you do consciously. I said, Lord, like, why are you talking to me about insignificance? And the simple answer was because you feel insignificant and you don't even realize it. It started with that story about my father. And it's just something that over time I just learned to accept. I said, I've taken the role as a co-pastor majority of the church. I've done what you've asked me to do, and I still feel insignificant. He said, yes, you do. And it's something that I didn't realize. And this is what I want us to get out of this. That sometimes we feel insignificant and don't even know it. You think that things don't apply to you, but they do. Yes, there's other people who have bigger roles, but yes, God needs you also, and you play a significant role. Like this little girl showed us. She stepped it up. She was bold. They could have, what the Bible didn't say. They could have punished her. They could have gave her 50 lashes for speaking about stuff that she wasn't asked to speak up about. Where the fear part comes in, but she overcame that. And that's how you knew God was involved. She didn't, I don't think she got 50 lashes or anything. Naaman and his wife listened to him because the sequences were right, one after the other. She told the wife, and the next verse, Naaman is speaking to the king of Syria. So God was involved, and a lot of times we don't realize that God is involved in us having those thoughts about, what if? Maybe I should have done this. Maybe I should have been the one. Yeah, you should have. You should have. And we see this clearly here with this girl. Like, she was fine. She was fine. She was a slave girl, 10, 11, 12 years old. And God backed her up because she spoke up. Some of the solutions. The first one. Not letting what is keeping us captive be a big influence. Working to resolve our issues, looking beyond what is in front of us. And I gave this one example. Some of the things that hold us captive and overcome, like me recently, a big thing. One of my big issues was the worrying part, worrying about everything. That's all. I just worry. And it was something that I didn't realize was holding me captive. Like it had a grip on me. Like my wife would tell me, well, we could do this, we could do that, and I'm still worried. I just never looked beyond my worry. So I'm just giving you an example of something that holds you captive. Sometimes we don't realize those things that are holding us captive, we can't look beyond it. And it keeps us, thinking that we're insignificant. The second one, don't compare yourself to others. It's not the way God intended. I'm going to go to the Psalms. Psalms 8, and I'm just going to read 4 verses. Psalms 8, and I'm going to read just from 4 to 8. What is man that you are mindful of him, and the Son of Man that you visit him? For you have made him a little lower than the angels, and you have crowned him with glory and honor. You have made him to have dominion over the works of your hands. You have put all things under his feet. all sheep and oxen, even the beasts of the field, the birds of the air, and the fish of the sea, that pass through the paths of the seas. O Lord, our Lord, how excellent is your name in all the earth. David's pointing out that we were made to have dominion over everything. So, and he says it to stress the point that, we are significant in God's eyes. That what God made us to be and have dominion over is significant. So when other people make you feel, insignificant, it's an obstacle that you can't overcome. How do I overcome that? By ignoring it. And listening to what God tells us is significant. We are significant, all of us equally to Him. And like I said, just because there are people who have played bigger roles, it's just that God has trusted them with more over time. But it doesn't mean they are the most significant. It just means that they are significant along with us, playing different roles. God does everything. He's very specific. And I keep saying, God is very specific, very, very specific. He knows when to release. What's next. It's about us trusting Him and believing in ourselves. God believes in us. Sometimes we're the ones who don't believe in us. The third one. What am I doing to be significant? I'm going to go to the book of Philippians 2:13. Just the one verse. Philippians 2:13. For it is God who works in you both to will and to do for His good pleasure. What am I doing to be significant? It's up to us to ask God. What is it that you need for us to do? What significant work is it that you need for us to do? Sometimes we want to be significant in ways that God never intended for us to be, which we have to be careful of. Like I say, He's very specific. There's certain things that just weren't meant for us, and we just have to accept them. That's why, being in touch, being in tune with God through the Holy Spirit is important. So that we have that guidance and knowing that we do play a significant part, but we have to realize that it's specific and catered specifically to us. Pastor Joel Osteen has like 50,000 members. It was meant for him. Go on and on the list, whoever has, God is specific. I know those people were placed in that church with him for a reason. He's very, very specific. And, it's up to us to be in tune and asking God. We should always keep in mind that the opportunity to be significant is always around us. Changing our mindset and realizing that we are all important to God is an essential part of this. Always be aware that your words or actions can be the answer to somebody's prayer.